What we've discovered is that malaria parasites inside red blood cells, which are the blood cells that carry oxygen around the blood, can actually communicate with each other, send signals from one parasite inside a red blood cell to another parasite inside a red blood cell. So it's over long distances during the infection. And it means that we can, once we know that, identify the molecules or the proteins involved in that signalling process and to potentially block those and block the ability of the parasite to move from the human host to the mosquito. In other words, block the transmission of malaria from the human to the mosquito.
I come from basic science. I did my PhD on yeast, and during my PhD I came across of these beautiful works showing different cell types that communicate. They send information one to each other, and when I came here and started to work with malarial parasites, I thought they should communicate too.
So when Netta came and showed me the data, I have to say I was absolutely gobsmacked. I really couldn't believe it, and we really had to repeat it many times in many different ways before I started to really believe that this was happening. But after that, when you start thinking about it, you understand why the malaria parasite really needs to have a mechanism like this. It needs to know how many of the parasites are out there, because it needs to know when is the time for it to become the sexual forms, the forms that can be taken up by a mosquito. If there's not enough of them there, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to survive. So they really need it.
We showed that the parasites that live in the red blood cells, they're sending one to each other information, they're sending package of DNA one to each other, and once they get this information, they change their fate. They became sexual parasites, and that are the parasites that can be survived in the mosquito life cycle. So basically we can explain how the disease is transmitted by these sexual stages.
So malaria, it's a huge economic burden, particularly because it kills children under 5 years of age. And so not only is that a tragedy, of course, but what it means is that those children don't grow up to become adults, and they don't get to work, and they don't get to contribute to the economic situation of their country.